Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-Minute Histories videos. And today I'm in the Heritage Crossing neighborhood in Perkins Square, and we're going to talk about the Perkins Square Gazebo behind me. It dates to 1871, and back then it was a structure that was meant to provide shade and shelter for folks coming to get drinking water from a natural spring. Today, it's in a wonderful park here just north of Franklin Street and just west of Martin Luther King, if you know where that is. And today, it provides shade and shelter for people who are here enjoying the park. But we're not going to start today. We're going to start way back at the start. And for us, the start is when Baltimore City relied on fresh springs for drinking water. That start is, as they say, till the memory of man runneth not to the contrary, or at least that's what one of my history professors used to say. I think that means way back when. And of course, natural springs have been here even longer than humans have been in Baltimore. But we're going to start in 1810. 1810 is when Baltimore City, still a pretty new town, incorporated in 1797, so still a pretty new town, started buying up parcels of land around natural springs so that the public could have access to them. The city was growing and we needed fresh drinking water. In 1810, the city bought up 4 parcels. One was at Calvert and Saratoga Street. That was called City Springs. And then there were several that had the wonderful name of Fountain. There was Eastern Fountain at Pratt and Eden Street, Western Fountain at Charles and Camden Streets, and Center Fountain at the Center Market, which today we, of course, know as Port Discovery. At each of those places, the city did a little bit of landscaping so that people could have safe access to the drinking water. And then they appointed a keeper. And that was because the citizens of Baltimore were so desirous of having fresh drinking water that sometimes we could be a little unruly getting it. And the keeper was there to provide some order to the chaos. The keeper had a little house as well. And Baltimore City built some sort of a security structure on top of these springs so that in the clamor to get drinking water, they didn't become polluted. You'll notice that Perkins Square Spring was not one of those original 4 in 1810, and that's because this was outside of Baltimore town's limits. We were west of the city. We were on the Chatsworth estate. A gentleman named George Walker, one of Baltimore's original commissioners, owned this estate. And as the 1800s sort of drew on, this part of Baltimore was annexed in 1816 or 1817 and started to get developed. The Chatsworth estate parcels started to get sold off for row houses. And by the 1850s, there were a lot of people here, and they began clamoring for the city government to buy this little parcel, which at that point was owned by a gentleman named John Perkins, Dr. Perkins. He was a University of Maryland doctor. But the folks around here wanted access to this natural spring that was here. Baltimore City was not really quick to jump on that. It let about a decade or more go by. But by the 1860s, the city started paying for some landscaping improvements to provide access to the spring here. That was when it was still owned by Dr. Perkins. I guess he said, okay, you can come on my land just as long as I don't have to pay for it. But in 1871, the city eventually purchased the property and built this gazebo. And the gazebo is really great. It is one of those structures that you may be tempted to just kind of walk by and say, that's kind of neat. But if you look at it, it is really neat. It's in the style called the Victorian eclectic style, Victorian era eclectic. It borrows from a number of other styles. And it was really meant, just like some of similar style pieces in Druid Hill Park, some of the pavilions, if you know them, in Druid Hill Park, it was meant to capture your eye and to be really pleasing to look at as you were either getting water or strolling by. I think it was one of those structures that was meant to make you smile. And I'm going to say that the designers and builders did a really good job of that. Here are some of the really interesting features. The columns are not just plain Jane columns. Each column is actually 4 slender columns grouped together. The base of the columns has wonderful stenciling in the ironwork around it. And the archways at the top of the columns are a little bit pointed, sort of borrowing from the Moorish style. And they've got wonderful circular decorations on them. The roof is what's called an OG shape. If you're a crossword puzzle fanatic, you might have come across that word before, OGEE. If you're not a crossword puzzle fanatic, you might not have. There's all sorts of architectural definitions for it, but it basically means a shape that's got two curves in it, like an S or like a serpent. Take your choice. And then, of course, at the top of that wonderful OG roof is a squared off cupola with a slender weather vane protruding to the heavens on top. It really does make you smile. The grounds around here were fantastically kept up. This place did not just have a keeper, it had 3 commissioners to keep up the grounds and gardens and the gazebo here. One contemporary visitor said that it was noted for the beauty of its flowers and its garden, but it was also a natural spring, and the commissioners were charged with keeping a ladle nearby so that if you were strolling to take a look at the flowers and got thirsty, you could dip down and take a sip. As the 1800s turned into the 1900s, this part of the city developed quickly and became much more urban. The need for gardens gave way to the need for places where kids could play ball, and the gardens were taken up and fields put in. The gazebo remained, but the spring did eventually get polluted with all of the outhouses and whatnot here, replaced with a drinking fountain with piped-in fresh water. A big change came in 1963, and that's when Baltimore City demolished the houses around here and built a new public housing complex. The gazebo survived. In fact, the gazebo got a fresh paint job and was refurbished in that time period. Another big change happened in 2003, and that's when the city took down Murphy Homes, that was the name of the public housing project, and built today's Heritage Crossing neighborhood where I am today. And in its dedication in 2003, the late Elijah Cummings, Representative Cummings, gave remarks, and he compared the neighborhood to the TV's Mayberry neighborhood, and indeed it is almost too picture perfect here. There are tidy houses with very neat front yards, very well manicured. There are wonderfully inviting sidewalks connecting the community together. And at the heart of it is Perkins Square and this 150-year-old gazebo. So I'll invite you to come on down if you haven't been here, take a stroll around the park, and then take a close-up look at the wonderful Victorian-era eclectic gazebo that's still standing. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.